Families hide secrets, but some truths refuse to stay buried. What if the person you trusted most shared your face, your voice, and your blood, yet wanted to destroy everything you love? Tonight, witness a chilling tale of betrayal, revenge, and identity in the doppelgänger. I used to believe my family was ordinary. We had the usual photographs in frames, birthdays with candles, and a house that looked warm from the outside. But memory has a way of betraying you. When I think back now, I remember the silences more than the laughter, the way my parents' eyes would harden when certain questions slipped from my mouth, the way I sometimes felt like a stranger in my own home. It started with whispers I couldn't place. As a child, I used to hear faint crying at night, a voice that sounded eerily like mine but weaker, more desperate. My mother would come rushing into my room whenever I told her, pressing a finger to her lips, telling me it was only the wind. I tried to believe her, because what else could a child do? Yet even then, I carried the unease, as though someone unseen was living in the spaces between our walls. I buried those feelings as I grew older, convincing myself it was imagination. But secrets have a way of resurfacing when you least expect them. One afternoon, while searching for an old notebook in the attic, I found a folder buried beneath boxes of winter clothes. Inside was a brittle document, yellowed at the edges, with a name almost identical to mine. The birth record listed 2 infants, not 1. 2 daughters born on the same day. 2 cries. 2 heartbeats. Only 1 had lived. At least, that was what I had always been told. I sat frozen on the dusty floor, my hands trembling as if I had stumbled upon something forbidden. The page smelled of damp and time, but it carried a truth my parents had buried. I wasn't an only child. I had a twin. I didn't confront them immediately. Instead, I studied them at dinner, wondering if their casual smiles were masks. My father's laugh seemed forced, and my mother's hand lingered on mine too long, as if she feared I would slip away. Every word they spoke felt rehearsed, as though they were hiding a script beneath the table. I wanted to tell myself it was a clerical error, that the hospital must have miswritten something, but the feeling in my chest told me otherwise. It wasn't just paperwork. It was the missing piece that explained everything, the cries I had heard, the unspoken tension, the weight in my parents' eyes. Days later, I saw her. Or at least, I thought I did. It was dusk, and I was walking back from the corner store when I caught a glimpse of someone across the street. She wore a hood, her hair falling just as mine did, her posture so familiar it made my skin prickle. She lifted her head for the briefest moment, and in the fading light I saw my own face staring back at me. Not a reflection. Not a trick of glass. A living, breathing mirror. Before I could cross the street, she vanished into the shadows, leaving me gasping for air as though I had seen a ghost. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? Instead, I tried to shake it off, but the more I resisted, the closer the truth pressed against me. My dreams became restless. I would wake with the sensation of someone sitting at the edge of my bed, watching, waiting. My mother insisted I looked pale, tired, but her concern only deepened my suspicion. If she knew the truth, she wasn't ready to admit it. One evening, curiosity overcame fear. I returned to the attic and searched again. Beneath piles of forgotten boxes, I found an old photograph. It showed my parents, younger and sharper around the eyes, holding 2 infants wrapped in blankets. The faces were blurred, but the outline was clear, 2, not 1. Someone had tried to scratch one of the babies out with a pen, leaving angry marks across the paper. My hands shook as I traced the damaged surface, realizing this wasn't an accident. This was deliberate erasure. I felt betrayed, not only by the possibility that my parents had lied, but by the silence that had been forced upon me my entire life. I thought of all the times I had sensed another presence, all the moments I had doubted myself. I wasn't imagining it. She was real. I began to notice smaller things. My phone rang late at night with no one on the line, just faint breathing. I saw my own reflection lag in mirrors, as though someone else was looking back through the glass. My belongings disappeared, then reappeared in strange places. A hairbrush missing from my drawer would be found on the porch, damp with rain. A sweater folded neatly in my closet would show up crumpled outside my window. It was as though someone was reminding me that I was not alone, that every piece of me had a shadow. The tension inside me grew unbearable. I wanted to scream at my parents, demand answers, but part of me feared what I would unleash. Instead, I started writing everything down, every sighting, every whisper, every anomaly, as though recording it could make it real. Then one night, as I sat by the window unable to sleep, I heard it clearly. My own voice, soft and deliberate, calling my name from the garden. Not a cry, not a mistake. A voice identical to mine. I leaned forward, heart hammering, and saw movement beneath the tree line. A figure stood just beyond the glow of the street lamp, still, waiting. She tilted her head the way I do when I'm lost in thought, and I felt the world collapse in on itself. I couldn't move. My throat burned with the urge to call out, but fear sealed my mouth. She stepped forward, just enough for me to see her face, and my breath caught in my chest. It was me. Same eyes, same lips, but colder, sharper. She smiled, if you could call it that, and lifted a hand, palm outward, as though marking me, claiming me. Then she turned and slipped back into the darkness, leaving me shaking so violently I thought I might shatter. That night I didn't sleep. I sat with the lights on, staring at the door, expecting it to open. And for the first time in my life, I realized that the family I trusted might have built my entire existence on a lie. I had a sister. She wasn't dead. And she was here. Watching. Waiting. I woke the next morning with a heaviness I couldn't shake, as though the night had left fingerprints on my skin. My parents were at the table, sipping coffee, reading the newspaper like nothing had shifted, but everything inside me screamed that the world had cracked open. I studied them in silence, wondering how they could look so calm, how they could live with secrets pressed into their smiles. I decided to test them. Did I ever have a sister? I asked casually, trying to sound careless. My mother's spoon froze halfway to her mouth. My father folded the paper too neatly, his hands tight. For a moment, silence hung like a blade. Then my mother forced a laugh, soft and brittle. "You've been watching too many movies," she said, her eyes darting away. My father added, "No, honey. Just you. Always just you." Their voices were steady, but their faces betrayed them. I knew the truth was clawing its way beneath their skin. That night, I couldn't stay still. I walked the streets of my neighborhood, searching shadows, straining for another glimpse of her. Each passing window reflected pieces of me. Sometimes I wondered if she was waiting inside the glass, watching, mocking. My heart twisted tighter with every step. The next clue came not from her face, but her handwriting. A note slipped under my door in the middle of the night, folded neatly, smelling faintly of smoke. The words were sharp, deliberate, "You took my life. Now I'll take yours." The letters looked disturbingly like mine, curved in the same rhythm, but angrier, pressed harder into the paper. My hands trembled as I held it, realizing she wanted me to know she was close, that this wasn't a mistake. This was a warning. I kept the note hidden from my parents, but my paranoia grew. I began locking my window, double-checking my doors, yet still I woke to find things disturbed. My shoes placed neatly beside the bed, when I had left them at the door. My mirror smudged with fingerprints that weren't mine. A cold imprint of someone sitting in the chair across from my bed, watching as I slept. Desperate for answers, I turned to my grandmother. She lived alone in a smaller house on the edge of town, a woman who had always been more candid than my parents. When I asked her if I had ever been a twin, her hand stilled on her teacup. Her gaze grew distant, as though she was seeing someone long gone. After a long silence, she whispered, "Some truths are heavier than love." I begged her not to speak in riddles. Finally, she admitted it. My mother had given birth to 2 daughters. But there had been complications. One child was weaker, fragile, and the doctors warned she might not survive. My parents chose to raise one, and the other disappeared. She lowered her eyes, her voice breaking, and I realized she knew more than she dared to say. I walked home that day carrying more than answers. I carried the weight of betrayal, of knowing I had been chosen, and that choice had condemned my sister to shadows. How could I not imagine the rage that would grow in her heart, the bitterness that would fester year after year? The following days blurred into a haze of fear. I began to feel her everywhere, in the brush of cold air on my neck, in the echo of footsteps behind me, in the way strangers glanced at me twice as though they recognized me when I knew we'd never met. Then came the first real strike. My father's car swerved off the road one evening on his way home from work. He survived with minor injuries, but the mechanic later said the brakes had been tampered with. My mother brushed it off as an accident, but I saw the tremor in her hands when she held the report. I knew it wasn't random. It was her. She was no longer content to haunt me. She was attacking us. That night, another note appeared. They will pay first. Then you. I couldn't keep it quiet anymore. I confronted my parents, slamming the notes onto the table. Their faces drained of color. At first they tried to deny it, but I demanded the truth until their silence became its own confession. My mother broke down, sobbing into her hands, while my father sat stone still, his jaw clenched. Finally, in a hoarse voice, he admitted it. There had been two of us. The doctors had warned that raising both would stretch them beyond what they could handle. One baby was frail, always sick. They were told she wouldn't live long. My parents had made a choice, or maybe it had been forced upon them, I couldn't tell. But they chose me. They let her go. I thought the ground had vanished beneath me. I wanted to scream, to hate them, to demand how they could have made such a monstrous decision. But the sight of my mother's shaking body silenced me. She wept like someone who had been punished her entire life for a choice she couldn't undo. My father only whispered, "We thought she was gone. We thought it was mercy." But she hadn't died. She had lived. And now she was back, stronger, sharper, carrying every wound they had inflicted. That night, I couldn't close my eyes. I kept hearing her voice, my voice, circling inside my head. I saw her face in every reflection, her shadow lurking just behind me. My thoughts spiraled into guilt, fear, anger. Why had I been chosen? Why had she been discarded? What made me more worthy of life? I wanted to meet her. I wanted to understand. So when another note arrived, this one scrawled in hurried strokes, "Do you want to see me?" I felt something reckless rise inside me. Beneath it, an address was written, only a few blocks from my house. My hand shook as I read it over and over, my pulse hammering in my throat. I went. The building was abandoned, windows shattered, walls lined with graffiti. The air smelled of damp and rust. I stepped carefully, my heart clattering against my ribs. And then I saw her. She stepped from the shadows, a mirror of me, but different in ways that froze my blood. Her hair hung in dark strands, her eyes hollow yet burning with a fire I couldn't match. Her smile was thin, cruel. It was like looking into a broken reflection, one that had suffered every crack I had been spared. "You're real," I whispered, though the words felt empty. She tilted her head, studying me with a gaze that stripped me bare. "Of course I'm real," she said. Her voice was my own, but heavier, weighted with bitterness. "I've always been real. You're the one who shouldn't exist." I opened my mouth, but no words came. She stepped closer, her presence overwhelming, suffocating. "Do you know what it feels like to be erased?" she asked softly. "To grow up knowing you were the one they didn't want. That they left you behind to rot while they raised you like a princess?" Her smile widened, though her eyes glistened with something more dangerous than tears. "I was supposed to be you. And now, I will take back what is mine." Her words pierced me deeper than any knife could. I wanted to defend myself, to tell her I hadn't chosen this, that I had been as blind as she once was. But the truth settled heavy on my tongue, I had lived the life she was denied. Every birthday, every hug, every comfort, it had all been stolen from her. She reached out suddenly, brushing her fingers along my cheek. The touch was cold, possessive. "We are the same," she whispered. "But only one of us deserves to survive." And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about revenge. This was about replacement. My parents no longer pretended after that night. The walls of our house felt different, thinner, as if the truth had stripped away everything that once made it a home. My mother barely spoke, and when she did, her voice cracked with guilt. My father became a shadow of himself, pacing, locking doors twice, staring out the window as if he expected her to appear at any moment. I couldn't tell them about the meeting. I couldn't bring myself to describe the way she looked at me, the venom hidden behind my own face. It would have destroyed them. Instead, I carried her words inside me, words that pressed harder each day. I was supposed to be you. And she proved she wasn't bluffing. The attacks grew closer, sharper, like blades carving into the fragile shell of our family. One night, our kitchen filled with smoke, someone had left the gas on. My mother swore she hadn't touched it. Another evening, I woke to the sound of glass shattering. The family portrait that had hung above the fireplace lay on the floor, the glass cracked straight across my face, while everyone else's image remained intact. I started to feel like I was losing myself. Each time I caught my reflection, I half expected it to move without me. Sometimes I swore my reflection smiled when I didn't. I felt her closing in, not just from the outside, but inside my head. Finally, my parents sat me down. My father's face was pale, his hands trembling as he confessed everything he had held back. "We thought she wouldn't survive," he said. "She was frail. We were told she would be in pain all her life. We couldn't handle it. We made a choice." My mother sobbed into her hands, whispering apologies that felt too late. I wanted to rage at them, to tell them that their choice had birthed a monster, but part of me couldn't. Because behind the rage, I understood. They had chosen me, but in doing so, they had condemned her. And now she wanted balance. The next time she came to me, she didn't hide in shadows. I found her waiting in my room, sitting calmly in the chair across from my bed as though she belonged there. My heart nearly stopped, but she only smiled, my smile twisted into something cruel. "Do they know I'm here?" she asked softly. I shook my head. She tilted hers, studying me like a specimen. "Good. Let them sleep while we decide." Her presence filled the room, suffocating and magnetic. She told me things I didn't want to hear, how she had grown up alone, shuffled between strangers, how every birthday she imagined me blowing out her candles. She described nights of hunger, days of anger, years of wondering why she wasn't worth saving. Every word was a blade, and I had no defense. "I don't want your pity," she hissed when my eyes filled with tears. "I want what should have been mine. I want their love. Their house. Their life. And if I can't have it, I'll take it from you." Her eyes burned into mine, and for the first time I understood the depth of her plan. This wasn't just revenge. She wanted to erase me the way they had tried to erase her. I begged her to stop, to see that none of this was my fault, but she only leaned closer, her breath cold on my skin. "We are the same," she whispered. "But only one of us deserves to survive." From that night on, I couldn't rest. I stayed awake listening for footsteps, waiting for her to strike. I warned my parents, but they dismissed it as paranoia, too afraid to admit she was closer than ever. The breaking point came when my mother found a photograph tucked beneath her pillow. It was a picture of our family at the dinner table, but my place was empty. Someone had cut me out. She fainted when she saw it, and I knew my sister had already infiltrated our lives in ways we couldn't stop. I confronted her again, this time outside, beneath the weight of the night sky. "Why me?" I demanded. "Why are you doing this?" She laughed, low and bitter. "Because you're everything I should have been. Because every smile they gave you was stolen from me. I want them to know what it feels like to lose you. I want them to taste the same grief they forced on me." Her voice was ice, but her eyes betrayed something deeper, pain, endless and raw. For a moment, I almost reached for her, almost believed she could be saved. But then she whispered, "When I'm finished, they won't even remember you existed." I realized then that she had been planning this for years. Every step, every move, carefully designed to unravel us. And I knew the final strike was coming. I tried to warn my parents, but it was too late. That evening, our power went out. The house fell into darkness, silence thick enough to choke. I heard footsteps in the hallway, deliberate, steady. My father grabbed a flashlight, but its beam flickered uselessly. My mother clutched my hand, trembling. Then her voice drifted through the dark, calm and mocking. "Which one of us do you love more?" My blood froze. She was inside the house. The next minutes blurred into chaos. Doors slammed, glass shattered, her laughter echoed through every corner. I caught flashes of her in the dark, her face identical to mine, her movements sharp and predatory. My parents stumbled through the house, calling my name, their panic feeding the storm. At one point, I faced her directly in the hallway, the flashlight catching both our faces in a split second. For that brief moment, even I couldn't tell which one of us was real. She whispered, "Choose, or I'll choose for you." My father lunged toward her, but she slipped into the dark like smoke. My mother screamed my name, her voice breaking. And in that chaos, I understood the truth: this was never just about revenge. It was about identity. About replacing me, claiming the life that had been denied to her. By the time the lights flickered back, she was gone, leaving only destruction in her wake, shattered frames, overturned furniture, the lingering echo of her voice. My parents collapsed in exhaustion, but I couldn't rest. I knew she wasn't finished. As I sat in the ruins of our living room, I felt the weight of inevitability. She wouldn't stop until one of us was gone. Blood had tied us together, but blood would also decide which of us remained. And for the first time, I wondered if I was strong enough to survive her. The days that followed were a blur of fear. My parents barely spoke, and when they did, it was in whispers, as though their voices might summon her. I felt her everywhere, behind the mirror, beneath the floorboards, in every dark corner I passed. Sleep became impossible. I knew she was circling us, waiting for the right moment. It came one evening, sudden and merciless. A letter slid under our front door, written in that same furious hand. "Tonight the truth is decided. Only one of us belongs." My father locked every door, my mother clutched the phone with trembling fingers, but deep down we all knew locks meant nothing to her. The house felt like a coffin. Silence pressed against the walls until it snapped. A crash erupted from the kitchen. We rushed in, but the room was empty except for the shattered remains of a glass on the floor. Then her voice echoed from the hallway, my voice, mocking, layered with hatred. "Which of us do you love, Mother? Which of us do you choose, Father?" My mother collapsed into tears, my father shouted into the dark, but I knew this was for me. I stepped forward, heart pounding, and whispered into the silence, "I'm here. Come for me." She did. She appeared at the end of the hallway, calm, composed, her face lit faintly by the glow of the street lamp through the window. My own face, twisted by years of rage. She walked slowly, deliberately, until we stood only feet apart. "This is where it ends," she said softly. "One of us was always meant to be erased. Tonight, we finish what they started." I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. "It doesn't have to be this way." Her smile was cold. "It already is." She lunged, and for a moment it was like fighting myself. Every move mirrored, every breath matched. My parents screamed behind me, but the world narrowed to just her and me, two halves colliding, desperate to claim the same life. Her hands closed around my throat, her strength shocking, her eyes alight with triumph. I fought back, clawing, pushing, until we slammed against the mirror in the hallway. The glass cracked around us, splintering our reflections into fragments, two faces shattered into dozens. For a moment, I saw myself everywhere, and nowhere at all. Then the glass gave way. We fell together, shards cutting into our skin. Pain blinded me, blood ran warm across my arms, but still she held on, hissing through clenched teeth, "Only one of us walks away." Somehow, I found the strength to push her back, just enough to break free. We both scrambled to our feet, breath ragged, eyes locked. I couldn't tell if I was staring at her or at some broken version of myself. And then, it happened too fast to comprehend. A final struggle, a scream, the sound of glass tearing flesh. One of us collapsed, the other remained standing. My parents rushed forward, but their faces were twisted in confusion and terror. My mother whispered my name, but her eyes flickered with doubt, as though she couldn't be certain which daughter had survived. I stood there, blood dripping down my arms, breath shaking, staring at the body crumpled on the floor. The face was my own. Silence filled the house. My parents clutched each other, trembling. Slowly, I lifted my gaze to them. "It's over," I whispered. My voice was steady, but inside me, something cracked open, something I could never put back together. Later, when the body was taken away, I stood alone in the hallway, staring at the broken mirror. The fragments reflected me 100 times over, each piece showing a slightly different version of my face. I couldn't tell which was real anymore. Had I won? Or had she? As the night stretched on, I realized the cruelest truth of all: even in victory, she lived inside me. Her anger, her grief, her hunger, they were mine now. Perhaps they always had been. When I finally turned away from the mirror, I carried her with me. And in the silence that followed, I wasn't sure if the girl who remained was truly me, or the doppelgänger who had taken her place. If this story sent shivers down your spine, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more chilling tales of revenge and hidden truths. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next twist. Your next nightmare might be closer than you think.